The notification hit me like a slap. "You have been removed from the group." That was all it said. Just a bland gray bubble on my phone screen. But my stomach dropped so hard, I nearly dropped the cake box in my hands. This wasn't some social group I could shrug off. This was the bakery chat, the one where all shift changes, supply arrivals, custom orders, and incident reports came through. Without it, I was flying blind, and there was only one person with the authority to do that. Tony. I walked into the front of the bakery with my throat tight. The bells over the door jingled cheerfully, a sound I usually loved, but right then it grated at me like nails on glass. Behind the counter, Tony was rearranging pastries on the display. He didn't look up as he said, "You're late." I wasn't late. I knew it, and he knew it. But the real sting was that he acted like nothing had happened. Like removing me from my own workspace's lifeline was just routine. "What happened to the group chat?" I asked, my voice too sharp to pass for casual. My hands were still shaking from the notification. He gave a little shrug, eyes fixed on his neat row of almond croissants. "Oh, that? Must have been an app thing. I'm cleaning it up. Too many people talking over each other. I'll send you the new one later." Except he didn't. And the way he didn't meet my eyes told me he wouldn't. I went to the back, checked the day's prep lists, and immediately hit a problem. The large strawberry shortcake I was supposed to prep? The order sheet was stained, half illegible, and missing the time. Normally, I'd pull the details from the messages in the chat. Now, I had nothing. It hit me in waves. Not just the chance of messing up an order, but the thought of customers thinking I was the one dropping the ball. Reputations here weren't a matter of months. They were a matter of minutes. Mess up once, and word around town could gut your sales. I pulled out my phone again and scrolled through our old messages until I hit the point where messages had stopped loading. Right before this morning. All that history, all the records of orders, special requests, even delivery notes, gone. For the first time, the smell of fresh bread and sugar in the air made me nauseous. Because if Tony could cut me out of this without warning, what else could he freeze me out of? I had no idea then that this was just his first move. One tiny snip in a slow, quiet cutting away of my place in the bakery I thought I'd grow old in. But I was about to find out. Shall I write the next chapter? The moment I stepped into the storage room, the truth of what Tony had done pressed in like the heat from the ovens. This bakery wasn't just a job. It was the last piece of my grandmother still breathing in the world. She'd built it from her kitchen table, a place with mismatched curtains and counters scratched from 1,000 rolling pins. My mom and I kept it alive after she passed, each of us promising the other, and ourselves, that this wasn't just a business. It was our legacy. And then Tony moved in. At first, he was just helping Mom with invoices and deliveries. My mother swore she needed him to take the weight off her shoulders, said he knew how to talk to customers, and was good with managing. But slowly, every decision seemed to filter through him. Which cupcake flavors to feature? Tony's call. Whose hours to cut? Tony again. Even which charities to donate day-old bread to? Tony. Now, being shut out of the staff group chat meant I had no way to see what was happening day to day. I was locked out of schedules, invoices, and supply lists. If something went wrong, a late delivery, a missing ingredient, Tony got the call, not me. And you know what that meant? It meant that to my coworkers and suppliers, I was the one who was clueless and unreliable. Worse, it wasn't like I could just walk away. My mother depended on me to work here. This was my only income, and working anywhere else felt like betraying the only family obligation I considered sacred. And leaving Tony in full control? I couldn't stomach it. The idea of confronting him twisted in my gut. He had this way of making me sound emotional, petty, like I was overreacting about little things. But I couldn't let this slide, could I? I caught myself gripping the metal doorframe to steady the shaking in my arms. If he was locking me out of the chat, what else was he controlling without me knowing? An old fear crept in, the kind you don't want to name, that maybe Mom trusted him more than she trusted me. And I realized, if I didn't find a way back into the loop, I wasn't just going to lose the bakery. I was going to lose my standing in my own family. I made up my mind right there to catch him in something undeniable, something even Mom couldn't wave off as miscommunication. But before I could make a move, the first little hints started to appear. And they seemed harmless. At first. Shall I write the next chapter? It started with the muffins. They weren't my muffins anymore. I'd been baking them since I was 16. Blueberry crumble that my grandmother had taught me. The kind customers would pre-order for Saturdays because they sold out in an hour. But one morning, I walked in and the smell was off. Not bad, just different. Lighter. Less cinnamon, too much vanilla. New recipe, Tony announced when I asked. People want something fresher. People? Which people? No surveys had been mentioned to me, and when I pointed out that several customers asked specifically for my muffins, he smirked and said, "We'll see how they do with the change." Then it was the schedules. I used to have 4 full shifts a week. That dropped to 3, then 2.5, with the half being an awkward 11 to 3, where I could hardly prep any custom orders because I wasn't there at opening or closing. Tony claimed there'd been staffing reshuffles. Somehow the reshuffles always gave the prime shifts to people who'd been working here less than a year, but who laughed at his jokes and agreed with his ideas. The whispers came next. Once, when I walked into the break room, 2 of the girls cut their conversation short. All I caught was, "Tony says she's too emotional about the menu." I pretended not to hear, but my cheeks burned for the rest of the day. And then, customers started saying things like, "Oh, Tony told me you were off this week," when I wasn't. Or, "They said you're just focusing on baking now, not orders." Who was they? The only they in this bakery wielding that kind of power was Tony. Out front, he smiled, told everyone I was lovely, but a little under a lot of stress. Behind that charm, he siphoned away pieces of what I did here, smudging my name out of the picture until I looked like an extra in my own story. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, tiny enough that if I complained, I'd be told I was imagining it, or worse, that I was jealous. I told myself to wait for something big, something public, something no one could deny. I didn't have to wait long, and when it came, it happened in front of a room so full you could practically hear my reputation cracking. Shall I write the next chapter? The bakery was packed that Saturday, the warm kind of chaos where the air smelled like sugar and caramelizing butter, and you could hear the espresso machine hissing between orders being shouted over the counter. Every table was full, and there was already a line stretching to the door. I was halfway through boxing cupcakes when I heard a sharp voice cut through the hum of chatter. "This is not what I ordered." I froze. A woman in her mid-40s stood at the counter, holding up a white cake box like it contained evidence of a crime. I set the cupcakes down and approached her, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm sorry, maybe I can—" "It's supposed to be my anniversary cake," she said, flipping open the lid. Inside was a plain chocolate cake with a generic message piped on top. "I ordered a red velvet, tiered, with gold leaf, 2 weeks ago, and I spoke to you about it personally." My stomach dropped. I remembered her. I had scribbled down her order myself. But that list? Nowhere to be seen this week. And without the group chat, I had no electronic record to cross-check. "Let me find the original order," I said quickly, heading for the back, praying it was on one of the paper forms. But the paperwork bin had nothing. No form, no payment record. Just like the strawberry shortcake order from last week. Before I could figure out what to tell her, Tony emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Oh, I handled that one," he said smoothly, giving the customer a sympathetic smile. "We had a mix-up with the order sheet. I substituted something we could do on short notice." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "I emailed," Tony lied, without even blinking. "Must have gone to spam." And then he looked at me, right there in front of her, and added, "We've been having a lot of communication issues lately." The way he said it, voice low, almost apologetic, made it sound like I was the cause. The customer's sharp gaze flicked to me like I was the one to blame, then back to Tony, who was already offering a discount card for her trouble. I felt the heat of embarrassment crawling up my neck. Around us, staff exchanged quick glances. I could sense the invisible scoreboard. Tony, 1, me, 0. If you think I'm exaggerating, you've never been humiliated in front of staff and customers by someone who's rewriting the narrative as you stand there. It wasn't just about a cake. It was about planting seeds in everyone's mind that I wasn't reliable, that I was careless. And the worst part? Mom was working in the back office that day. She didn't see any of it. I knew then that if I wanted to stop him, I had to create my own line of communication, a network Tony couldn't touch. But I had no idea just how fast he'd shut that down too. Shall I write the next chapter? I spent the rest of that Saturday on autopilot, smiling for customers, while my mind spun like a mixer stuck on high. By the time I got home that night, my plan was clear. If Tony could cut me out of the bakery chat, I'd make my own. So I did. I pulled up my contacts and started adding every staff member and supplier I knew personally. I kept the tone light in the invite. Backup updates group, just in case we missed something in the main chat. It was framed as efficiency, not rebellion. And it worked, for a few days. People started sending me little heads-ups. A flower shipment late by 2 days. A big custom cupcake order placed for a community gala. Information that wasn't showing up in my schedule. Clearly, things had been happening all along without me even knowing. I finally felt like I had one small toehold left in the bakery's operations. But on the 4th day, Tony cornered me by the fridge in the kitchen when no one else was around. "I hear you've been running some kind of side group," he said, his eyes as flat as the metal shelves behind him. I tried to play it off. "It's just a backup. Mistakes happen." "It's sabotaging," he snapped, voice low but edged with steel. "You don't go behind management's back." I was about to argue when Mom walked in, and instead of asking for both sides, she went straight to, "Why would you do that? Tony's been trying to streamline things." Then Tony, calm as if nothing had happened a second ago, said, "I think it's best if she hands over the bakery Instagram account password too. One clear line of messaging. Avoid confusion." I stared at them both. That account was mine. I'd built it from scratch, posted every photo, handled every message. It had over 5,000 followers, nearly all of them regulars who kept the bakery thriving. And the look in Tony's eyes told me exactly what he wanted. Not just to control what went on inside the bakery, but to rewrite its public face entirely, without me in it. I didn't answer right away. I told them I'd think about it. But that night, I made a silent promise. I wasn't giving him anything. Not my access, not my recipes, not my history here. I just didn't know yet how much proof I'd need to show Mom before she'd see what he was doing. And, as it turned out, the proof was already on its way to me, in the form of a late-night message from someone I never expected to take my side. "Shall I write the next chapter?" It came through at 11:47 p.m., when I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the bakery scene like a film loop I couldn't stop. "Sasha, hey. You didn't get this from me." And then 3 screenshots dropped into our chat. I sat up so fast, my phone charger yanked taut. The first screenshot was from the bakery's current internal group chat, the one I'd been booted from. Tony's message read, "No need to loop her in on the gala order. Tell them we're at capacity and get payment up front for accounting reasons." The second, "If she asks about late shipments, say you've already updated me. Don't forward her any supplier notices." And the third burned brightest. "We're giving Emily, my replacement on some shifts, priority on the big ticket orders. She's better with upscale clients. Keep my name on standard bakes." Every word was calculated, cold, deliberate. This wasn't a glitch, and it wasn't streamlining. It was exclusion by design. I texted back before I could think. "Me. Why are you showing me this? You'll get dragged into it." Sasha. "Because it's wrong. And if he's doing it to you, one day he'll do it to us." My hands shook as I saved each screenshot into a hidden folder on my phone. This was exactly what I'd been waiting for. Proof that Mom couldn't wave off. Only now that I had it, an entirely different fear snaked into me. What if even this didn't change her mind? I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tony's face, smiling that hollow charm he used whenever a customer or my mom was near. By morning, the decision had crystallized. If I went into a confrontation sloppy, emotional, unfocused, he'd win again. I needed more than texts. I needed a full picture of the damage he'd done. Late shipments, lost clients, orders redirected for his so-called accounting. Piece by piece, I'd build a case too clear to ignore. But gathering that evidence would mean stepping carefully around him in the bakery every day and pretending not to know the truth. And the clock was already ticking toward the next order he planned to hijack. Shall I write the next chapter? The next week felt like walking a tightrope over boiling water. Every time I stepped into the bakery, I could feel Tony's eyes tracking me, weighing whether I'd give him an opening to accuse me of something. So I played the part he wanted to see. Polite, steady, detached. Meanwhile, under the surface, I was pulling threads loose from his carefully woven control. First, I went straight to the suppliers. Not in person, that would have raised suspicion, but via calls on my lunch breaks, using my own phone, away from the bakery. I told them I was updating the company's order logs and asked them to confirm recent deliveries and payments. 3 suppliers told me the same thing. Invoices that should have been paid weeks ago were still pending. One, a dairy distributor we'd used for years, told me Tony had asked for their invoices to be sent directly to him to avoid confusion. Then I started quietly reaching out to certain customers, the ones who dropped off the map after years of steady orders. A corporate client told me they'd stopped booking us for monthly events because their contact, Tony, had doubled the deposit requirement without explanation. Another said they'd been told we didn't have capacity for their orders. The exact phrase I'd seen in Sasha's screenshots. I didn't mention any of this to Mom yet. I wanted her to see the entire puzzle at once, not give Tony the chance to context his way out of each piece. Every new fact I uncovered, I stored with the screenshots. The folder on my phone felt like a secret weapon. Small, digital, and powerful enough to cut him at the knees if dropped at the right moment. The hardest part was the acting. Smiling at the counter when I knew orders were being siphoned. Pretending to take directions from someone whose entire goal was to erase me. And to keep up the facade, I let him think he'd rattled me into compliance. I stopped asking about the group chat, gave curt nods when he changed recipes, even stepped away from the Instagram account for a few days like I was cooling off. But that calm wasn't surrender. It was a pause before the swing. By the end of the week, I had my full list. 3 suppliers with unpaid invoices, 2 major clients who'd pulled out, 4 staff members confirming I'd been excluded from important orders, and all with messages to prove it. The only thing left was to choose when and where to let it explode. And the perfect opportunity came when Mom decided to close early one evening and asked me and Tony to stay and do a deep clean together. He had no idea I was walking into that night with every card in my hand. Shall I write the next chapter? The evening started quietly, almost disarmingly so. The bell above the bakery door jingled one last time as our last customer left, and Mom flipped the sign to closed. She told Tony to wipe down the counters and me to check inventory in the back while she wrapped up in the office. That office door shutting was like the starting bell in my head. I'd been waiting for this moment, when it was just the three of us in the building. No staff buffering, no customers to impress. I stepped out from the back holding my phone, heart pounding but steady. Tony was polishing the glass display like he was cleaning a trophy. "We need to talk," I said. He didn't even look up. If this is about the group chat again, it's not just about the chat. I put my phone down on the counter between us and opened the hidden folder. The first screenshot, his words about excluding me from the gala order, filled the screen. I slid it toward him. He frowned. Then the next screenshot. "Don't forward her supply notices." Then the one about Emily getting priority on corporate orders. After that, the supplier invoices, the customer emails about doubled deposits, and a written statement from Sasha confirming the messages were real. One by one, evidence piled in front of him. "That's not," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't lie, not now. You've been stripping me out of this business piece by piece. You've turned clients away without telling Mom. You've stalled payments, and you've spun my absence as incompetence. I have all of it. Every single move you've made to erase me here." For the first time since he'd moved in, his composure cracked. A flush crept up his neck. "This is strategy. You wouldn't understand." Mom's voice came from the doorway before he could finish. "Oh, I understand." She was holding a stack of take-home folders, but her eyes were locked on the screenshots. She stepped forward slowly, scanning each one without speaking. The weight in the room shifted, away from his rehearsed dominance and into something brittle on his side. "I think," she said finally, her voice low, "you both need to sit down, now." So we did, right there at the front table, surrounded by the smell of cooling bread and the tension of every customer lie Tony had spun. Tony opened his mouth to launch into his damage control, but Mom took the phone from my hands and started scrolling deeper. And the moment she hit the message, the one that would undo him completely, I saw her jaw stiffen in a way I hadn't seen since I was a kid. "Shall I write the next chapter?" Mom's eyes stayed glued to the screen. She didn't move, didn't speak, just scrolled back and forth through the chat until the bakery was so silent I could hear the hum of the fridge. Then she read it out loud. "Once she's mostly out, we can rebrand and drop her completely. Name change, new image, no baggage from the old family drama." Tony's voice, my mother's partner, the man who'd been helping in our family business, laid out in black and white his plan to erase every trace of me from the bakery my grandmother built. I saw something crack in Mom's face. At first I thought it was rage, but it was worse. It was heartbreak. "Tony," she said slowly, "what exactly did you mean by drop her completely?" He leaned back, arms crossed, his tone defensive. "It's not what it looks like. You know how customers talk. All that emotional family mess isn't good for optics. The bakery could go further without my daughter?" Mom's voice was sharp now, slicing through the room. I didn't move, just watched the words land. He tried to recover, putting on that salesman half smile. "You're being emotional, both of you. This is business, and the business needs—" "No," Mom cut in. "The business needs trust, and you clearly don't have any for her or for me." I'd imagined this moment so many times, thinking she'd hesitate, that she'd choose peace over truth. But now she turned to me and said, "Show me everything. All of it. Right now." So I did. Every screenshot, every invoice, the names of customers who'd left. I didn't hold back, not even when I saw her face fall further with each piece. Tony stayed silent now, jaw tight, his eyes darting between us like he was already calculating his next move. Finally, Mom stood up, went into the office, and came back holding a thin manila envelope. She tossed it onto the table in front of him. "That's an updated partnership agreement for the bakery. Your name's not on it anymore. And, starting tomorrow, you're not welcome here, before I open or after I close. If you step in again to make decisions without me or my daughter's consent, we're done personally, too." It was as clean and sudden as a dropped blade. But Tony didn't fight back. He just gave me a look, something between anger and warning, and walked out. The door shut behind him with a final jingle. I thought it was over. But fallout has a way of getting to you slower, like heat radiating through a closed oven door. And in the days that followed, the burn came from angles I didn't see coming. Shall I write the next chapter? The bakery felt different the next morning. Lighter somehow, but also exposed. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it comes to family drama. By noon, I'd already gotten 3 variations of, "So, I hear Tony won't be around anymore?" whispered with that mix of curiosity and pity people use when they're fishing for gossip. Some customers smiled like they were proud of me for taking the reins. Others, not so friendly. A woman I barely knew leaned over the counter and said, "It's a shame, you know. Tony was such a charmer. The place felt more professional with him here." The sting of that took me off guard, because even though I knew what he'd done, I couldn't deny he had been charming in public. Always remembered names, always had a joke lined up. That image didn't vanish overnight, and in the eyes of some, I looked like the cold one for pushing him out. And then came the practical mess. He hadn't exactly left my systems intact. Entire supplier contact lists were missing from the work computer. The Instagram account came back to me stripped of half the scheduled posts I'd queued. I found 3 orders in the pipeline with payment dates, but no product details, meaning I had to awkwardly call clients and confess that I didn't know what they'd paid for. One corporate customer, the gala organizers he'd tried to block me from, called directly to say they were voting between a few vendors now that things had changed. My stomach twisted. His sabotage still had aftershocks, even with him gone. At home, Mom was quiet those first few days. Not cold, just withdrawn, like part of her was mourning the man she thought Tony was. I wanted to be sympathetic, but I also couldn't ignore the bruise he'd left across my trust. By the 3rd day, I realized this wasn't just cleanup. This was rebuilding from the ground up, and if I didn't take full control now, someone else, maybe the next helpful outsider that caught Mom's attention, would step right into the gap. So I changed every password: bakery email, POS system, social media. I set up a new group chat myself and made sure the backup admin was someone I trusted completely. I called suppliers directly to confirm they'd only send invoices to my email, no exceptions. And with each step, the panic that had been curling in my gut since the night I got booted from that chat started to loosen. But the real turning point, the one that cemented I'd done the right thing, came a week later, when one of the staff quietly slid me an envelope that made my hands go cold. Inside was something Tony clearly hadn't meant for me to see, the final key to understanding just how deep his plan had gone. Shall I write the next chapter? It was a plain white envelope, no name on the front, slipped to me while I was restocking the pastry case. Sasha didn't even make eye contact, just murmured, "Thought you should have this," before heading to the back. I waited until there was a lull at the counter before taking it into the office. My hands felt clammy just touching it. Inside were 6 printed pages. Emails. The header showed Tony's account, and the subject lines told me enough before I even read them. Rebranding proposal. Projected profit split. Post-transition. Phase-out timeline. I started from the oldest. 2 months ago, Tony had written to an old contact from a regional bakery chain. He described our bakery as a small but undermanaged asset with legacy brand baggage and offered to sell a majority stake in it once he gained full operational control. The legacy brand baggage was me. The business my grandmother had built, the one Mom and I had promised to protect, reduced to a disposable name in his spreadsheet. Scrolling further made my skin crawl. Attached was a crude timeline. Month 1, shift key client relationships under his name. Month 2, limit my role to production only. Month 3, remove my visibility completely. Avoid confrontation until end stage. Month 4, rebrand launch, with potential partnership buy-in from chain, and under projected profit split. Tony, 60%. Investing partner, 30%. Residual to current family owner, 10% phased out. 10%. That was all he thought. My family's blood, sweat, and memories were worth before phasing us out like yesterday's stale bread. I sat there, the hum of the old computer loud in my ears, my heart pacing in tandem with the cursor blinking on the screen. This wasn't just petty power games anymore. This was theft in slow motion, the sort where the victim doesn't even realize the knife is in until the bleeding starts. I wanted to run to Mom that second with the papers, but another thought stopped me cold. If this leaked into public gossip before we'd secured things legally, what was to stop him from trying to force through something fast with that chain? This wasn't about confrontation anymore. This was about locking the doors on his plans before he could pick the lock again. That night, I didn't sleep. I made calls, quiet ones, to a lawyer an old supplier had once recommended, gathering what I'd need to solidify control over the business on paper, not just in practice. Because now I knew. Getting Tony out of the bakery wasn't enough. I had to make it impossible for him to come back. And that meant facing what I'd been avoiding. Putting my mother in front of legal paperwork that proved her partner had been plotting to sell off her inheritance while eating breakfast at our kitchen table. Shall I write the next chapter?